Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's session of the Future Planning Process Screencast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mrs. Lodge. I wish that we were able to deliver this curriculum to you in person, but like many things this year, we needed to reimagine how we would be getting you information about the future planning process. So we are hoping that these screencasts will be a useful way for you to get information when you need it most, so that you can also revisit it during other times when you feel like you might need additional support. So in this week's session, I'm going to be sharing information with you about Naviance and how to make the most of using the Naviance programs. But first, as a reminder, this is the counselor breakdown alphabetically for the junior class. We really encourage you to have conversations with us as you're navigating this process as a family. We want to make sure that we're there to support you wherever you are at any step along the way. And we encourage you to set up times to have conversations with us, to meet with us in person on your in-school days, or to set up Zoom meetings on your out-of-school days or with families so that we can help support you. So what is Naviance? For those of you who aren't familiar with the Naviance program, it's a web-based platform that we use to help with college and career readiness. So we'll look at things like student strengths and student interests, and we use those pieces of data to help us inform the post-secondary planning process. We introduced the Naviance curriculum to the sophomores last year, and we helped them to focus on the career planning at that point in the process. So we really did a lot in thinking about what students' strengths and interests might inform their future plans way off down the line. So to think about the types of careers that might be of interest to them. In the junior year now, we're taking that information and we're saying, okay, if you've got a great career in mind, how do we get to that point? Let's bring it back to what you're going to be doing immediately after high school graduation to help support you in that future planning process. We'll use Naviance again throughout the rest of this year and into senior year to help support you as you actually submit applications to colleges as well. So Naviance actually houses Medfield-specific information. Every student has their own unique username and password. We do ask that students create family-friendly passwords so that they can share access with their parents and so that you can have open collaboration and communication at home as you're navigating the future planning process. And within that Medfield-specific data that we have, there's admissions data on how students have fared in the application process when they've applied to certain colleges from Medfield High School. And within each student's unique username, your GPA and your SAT or ACT scores are actually hooked into that system. So when you log in, you have all of your data right at your fingertips. So today I'm going to show you a little bit about the Naviance program through a sample student. I want to give you the opportunity to see what the website looks like, and while I want you to play around with it independently at home, be able to know where at least some of the great tools and resources are so that you can navigate things successfully moving forward. So this is the homepage that you would see when you log into Naviance the first time. And today we're going to be working primarily up here within this Colleges tab. So I'm going to go to Colleges and Colleges Home. And in these first two boxes at the top of the page, we see Find Your Fit and Research Colleges. And these are the two areas that you're really going to be focusing on as you're beginning this future planning process. Later on in senior year, we'll be looking more to this Apply to Colleges and Scholarships and Money sections. But to kick things off, we always like to work with students to help them begin to think about what schools they might be interested in. There are so many that are out there that it's hard sometimes to narrow things down. So we encourage all students to begin the search process by doing this super match search. It's a really, really great tool. Even if you have some schools in mind that you think you might be interested in already, I would encourage you to go through this super match process anyway, so that you can see how things shift and change, see if there might be some schools that you want to add to your list at any point in the process, or maybe some schools that you might end up taking away from your list because they don't have the types of things that you're looking for. So within this super match, you have the opportunity to go through, there are I believe it's 8 different categories with search criteria along the top here. I'm going to go through a couple of these, and then I'll show you a search that I've already saved for the sample student, just so you can see what it would look like in the end. But as you would start the process, you'd start over here, and actually I'm going to start over and select criteria to start. So by selecting the criteria, it pops up this first location information. So as I'm beginning to think about things, maybe I'm not totally sure where I want to go, but maybe I know I want to stick sort of along the eastern seaboard. So maybe I'm selecting at this point, I want to consider schools that are in the Northeast. Maybe I want to look at schools in the Mid-Atlantic. Let's keep it to those two areas for now. As I scroll down here, if I'm looking at my campus surroundings, this asks me, what type of an environment do I want to be in when I go off to college? Perhaps for this one, I don't really know the differences between what they're considering a small city and a large city. So maybe for this one, I click off both of them. I would consider I'd like to be in a city. So let's think about both of them. As I scroll back up to the top, I can move forward, and it's going to bring me over to this academic section. In this academic section, you can figure out what type of a degree you're looking for from a college. Many of you are likely looking for a bachelor's degree. You might select off a bachelor's degree. If there are particular majors that you're interested in, you would include majors information here. And it's got a whole list that you can choose from. I'm going to keep that blank just for the time being, and then move on to the admissions statistics. So you'll see here that my data as this sample student is already input into this area. So this sample student has a GPA of 3.33 unweighted on a 4.0 scale. Their SATs were an 1170 and their ACTs were a 27. I'm going to keep that information here. You can complete as much of this or as little of this as you want to begin to refine your search characteristics. For now, I'm going to simply close this, and I'm going to go to the Save Search so that you can see what it looks like once it's totally completed. So for this Save Search now, you'll see at the top all of the things that I indicated throughout the search process that I felt were going to be important for me in looking at a college. After you've completed that, you can move things from the must-have category to the nice-to-have category. So if there's something that you feel like is essential for you, maybe location is essential for you, you want to keep that in the must-have category. But maybe it doesn't matter to you as much whether or not your school is a public school or a private school. You could simply move that from the must-have category to the nice-to-have category. Maybe knowing that a college offers study abroad programs is a must-have. So you move that from the nice-to-have over to the must-have category. So you could play around with this data and begin to see how that shifts the colleges that come up. As I scroll down a little bit, I will see here that there are two institutions that they label that are both an academic match and also match every single piece of criteria that I selected above. And then below that, there are so many other schools that don't meet 100% of the selected criteria, but may be a good fit based on a lot of the things that I'm looking at. You can use this information now to really explore schools a little bit further. You can pin schools so that you can save them and compare them to one another, and they save at the top. You can favorite schools so they appear on your list all the time. You can look at things like this fit score. So for example, why is Catholic University a fit score of 89%? Let's take a look at that. So we will see here that if there's a check mark down here, that means it's a complete match with our criteria. A star is a close match, and some things they might not have all of the information. But it goes through and shares all of this information about why there's an 89% accuracy that this might be a good school. And it shares lots of data about the school as well. So this is great information. It talks about the academic match for students. There are certain highlights for some colleges that are on here that you can link directly to virtual tours or alumni spotlights and student spotlights about people who attend that institution or once did. You're getting information about your tuition and room and board. And then you can even include other data over here if you'd like. You'd say pick what to show. So maybe you want to show admission information. And you would see the acceptance rate for the particular school, whether or not they use the Common Application, the app fee, and whether or not they're test optional. So this really has a ton of rich information that you can use to begin this process of searching for colleges that you might want to later apply to. I'm going to navigate back to this college's homepage for just a moment here so that I can show you some of the other resources that are available as well. So for example, I would like to show you, I'm just going to do a college lookup here. I want to show you a school. Let's look at, let's see, I want to go by state. Let's look at schools in Massachusetts for right now. It's going to pull up lots and lots of schools. For the purposes of right now, let's take a look at Assumption University. So I clicked off Assumption, and I'm actually just going to click directly into Assumption. And it's going to pull up Assumption's profile information for us. And here we're going to see on this front page that there are beautiful pictures of the school. We get to learn a little bit about what Assumption is all about. Get to know the college. We'll see some of their statistics in terms of the size of the school, the student to faculty ratio, a religious affiliation. We could go through and we can look at the studies. So we'd be looking at, again, student retention, job placement rate, the types of the top areas of study, but all of the majors offered as well. And you could search specifically by a bachelor's degree and figure out the types of programs that are available at Assumption University. You could come over to the student life section and learn a little bit more about the student body breakdown in terms of ethnicity and gender and age, residency, and where students are coming from. You can go into this admission section, and this is where a lot of students get great rich information with Medfield specific data. So as I scroll down further here, I am looking at some high schools, Medfield High School's application history for students who have applied to Assumption College in the past. So if I'm looking at last year's class alone, we can see that 17 students from Medfield High School applied to Assumption. 9 of those students were admitted, and 4 of them chose to attend Assumption in the end. And we'll get that history over a number of years. You can scroll back quite far and get that application history. If we move down a little bit further on the page, we're going to see scattergrams for Medfield High School. So when you have GPA and test score information input into Naviance, you will appear on these scattergrams as this blue profile picture. So this sample student is right here with their 3.41 GPA and their 1170 on the SATs. If I wanted to look at it compared to ACTs, I would just change the test type right up here at the top. But for right now, let's stick with the SATs. And we can see information here about students who have applied from Medfield High School. And this is looking at students over the past several years. Students with a green check mark are students who were admitted to the school. Students with a red X were students who were denied. And then in some graphs, you might also see either purple circles or green circles, and those are students who were waitlisted in the process and might not have updated us later on to let us know whether or not they were ever taken off the waitlist at that institution. But this is a great way for you to get a quick snapshot view of whether or not a school might be a good fit for you. So for this particular student, if we're looking at the exact average for Medfield students who've applied, we're looking at a GPA of a 3.16 and SATs of a 1090. Our student appears above this graph, which is a pretty good indicator that Assumption is probably a likely school for this individual. They're not way up here, so it's not totally solid, right? But this is probably a good fit. If our student appeared sort of way down here underneath the lines, we're probably looking to say that this is much more of a reach school for the individual. And anywhere sort of hovering right around this area is probably a decent, good fit school for students. So you will find really good and helpful Medfield specific data through this scattergram and through these college profiles. I would simply caution you to say that this is one piece of information in the process. We're using 2 data points only, and it's hard data points. We use them because they're easy to measure. We can do that. But most colleges rely on more of a holistic admissions process. So they're looking at so much more in the process than just SAT or ACT scores and grade point average. In fact, with so many colleges that have gone test optional this year, colleges are weighing even more heavily on the other parts of the application process. So I would encourage you to use this as a jumping off point to gather information about developing your list and whether schools might be an appropriate fit or not, but don't use it as a tool to tell you whether or not you will absolutely get into a school or be denied from a school, because there really is so much more that goes into the process than just these 2 data points. I'm going to pop back to this colleges section one more time and just point out one other quick area here. I'll talk through a few, but this college maps section here actually will show maps of the United States, and you can sort it by colleges who accept the Common App, test optional schools, schools where Medfield High School students have applied, schools where Medfield High School students attend. So that's a really nice school tool just to be able to get a sense of maybe some other colleges that are out there. I would also encourage you to look at this college resources tab that has just really quick links to access a lot of other information that you will use in the process of future planning. And then I would also, I'm going to go back to this college's homepage one more time and just point out one thing that's actually new this year is this college events. So this college events is something that in this pandemic, where most colleges now are not allowing students to come and visit on campus, they're not able to do so. They're really doing so much more virtually, and they're providing so many opportunities for students and families to interact with their school so that you can get great information about them, and they can share information about the future planning process. So in this college events section, you'll see that a lot of colleges here are offering programming for families or for students to sign up to learn a little bit more. I would encourage you to check some of these out at different points in time. There's a lot coming up that you can easily sign up for and get really, really good information about the schools. Even for Roger Williams, there's info sessions and tours. A lot of them are virtual campus tours, but will provide a lot of really rich information. So at this point, I think I'm going to close things out for you. It's a lot of information, but we really want to make sure that you are using Naviance to the best of its ability. There's a ton of information in here that we want to make sure that you're able to access and use. If you guys are navigating through this process and you have questions, if you're on Naviance and you're trying to figure out how to read into some of the data that you have, please make sure that you're in touch with your guidance counselor so that we can help support you in this process. This really is a journey over the next year and a half, and we're really looking forward to helping to support you. Thank you so much for listening, and next week you'll have some more information coming your way about the future planning process. Thank you.